So, we met with the judge and plaintiff's counsel today. The meeting went well. Candidly speaking, the judge had some concerns, as we would expect, particularly about some spike in our third quarter numbers in our pedestrian investigations and oversight issues, which we do not disagree with. And we have since then put measures in place to improve upon this, many of which we outlined with the judge. And he seemed to be very happy with the steps we've taken thus far. But we'll look at some numbers coming up in the next couple of quarters to see whether there's some significant progress. We have every reason to believe that there will be, because again, we do not disagree with some of the assessments that are made. The judge was very forthright about his concerns, but we told him about some of the measures that we'll be taking. Many of them have to do with accountability, frontline supervisors and captains and inspectors. We just simply have to do a better job of what we're doing. Much of our issues center around just how we document things, our accountability, more so than the constitutionality of some of the stops, but obviously they all dovetail into one another. And so there's some work for us to do. But again, the meeting went very well. I think even plaintiff's counsel was cautiously optimistic about some of the things that we spoke about. And so the bottom line is the truth will be in the numbers coming forward. I mean, I can stand before you right now and tell you just about anything, but we'll have to see what the numbers bear out in the quarters that are coming up. Stop and frisk is a term. We do not use that. We use pedestrian investigations now. To be fair, it is the same thing, but we've never used that word in Philly PD. But it is a law enforcement tool that arises out of a federal court case from many, many years ago. And if you were to take that away from police officers, you would have chaos on the streets of this nation, not just here. And so what is imperative is that you do it constitutionally. It has to be done fairly, in an unbiased way, and you have to treat people with respect when you do it, because that's also a pivotal part of all this.
Commissioner Ross, the report notes that there is about 200,000 pedestrian stops in the quarters that they examined, which is about the same as the previous report. Do you want to see fewer stops, or does the volume concern you?
I don't want to get into volume. That always scares me. We never had a quota to get to 200,000. And so having something that might be an inverse quota is also dangerous, because to get there, you have to have some type of measure to suggest that you want a specific number. And I think what you want is constitutional stops. That's what you need. You need people to be treated fairly. And so we will not have any baseline measure about a number we're looking for, but we're going to make sure that people are stopped under the guise of constitutional stops. Constitutionality is important, that people are treated fairly, and that no one group is unnecessarily targeted as a result, particularly along racial lines or any other way.
And speaking of that, how do you explain the racial disparity that the report has cited? Does it concern you?
It concerns me only because the numbers exist, but here's a sad reality. And people don't want to talk about this, but it's the level of victimization that also occurs with people of color. And I notice I said victims, and those pretty much parallel those similar numbers. When you're talking 70-80% of the people stop, the level of victimization in this city is at least that much in neighborhoods of color, if not higher. That is a fact that you cannot deny. And when people talk about neighborhoods being over-policed, well, where would you suggest we have them? And so sometimes that lends itself to those numbers being where they are. I don't believe many of them have anything to do with bias in that regard. It's just a fact that we're dealing with.
Commissioner, when you talk about accountability moving forward, what does that mean? Can you break that down for us?
Well, I mean, for example, we will use our ComStat session. Many of you have heard of that, where we have sessions to deal with crime and address how mid-level managers address their crime and other forms of activity, auto accidents and whatever. This will be a different measure we'll put in place, where commanders will be compelled to answer for their 48A or pedestrian investigations and whether or not they're in compliance. That will be a big and significant one. We also will increase our auditing provisions, where we will have captains look at these things daily as opposed to quarterly. So a lot of things we've had in place that we believe were good measures, we just got to improve upon them. I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and so we've put in a number of measures. That is one, and the most powerful one might be the fact that the next time I see the judge, I might not be by myself. I might be here with another captain, and to explain what the issues are. And if you don't think that's powerful, then I don't know what to tell you.
Were you surprised at all that there was a difference
What are you referring to in particular?
They reported about 33%. You guys saw the spike.
The third quarter, so let me speak about that just a little bit. The third quarter, we think, had to do with two things. One was a narcotics-related issue where our narcotics division may have been under the mistaken belief that they had to use the same level of documentation for a site arrest. If it's an arrest and you've witnessed a narcotics transaction, that is not a pedestrian investigation. That is an arrest. That is different. And so that accounted for some of it. And also the issue of anonymous 911 caller information. You cannot stop a person solely on the basis of a 911 call without corroborating evidence. So in other words, a police officer would have to then show up based on the fact that a African-American male, age 51 years old, 52 tomorrow, wearing this blue outfit, you would have to then say that there's something additional that suggests that that individual was armed with a gun, not just the basis of a 911 anonymous phone call. We have addressed that, and we think that had a lot to do with the spike in the third quarter. Already in the fourth quarters, those numbers went right back down. We're still not satisfied with the numbers in the 30-something% range, and we acknowledge that, but they're down significantly from that third quarter.
Where do you think the numbers need to be?
Well, I mean, 0 would be perfect, but we don't live in a perfect world. I mean, so what we want to do is make sure that at very minimum that our oversight is stellar and is absolutely where it should be, that we understand the constitutionality of pedestrian investigations, what that means for everybody involved, that people are treated fairly, with respect, and we want to get to a point where officers understand even some of the basic things about just treating people with respect when you stop them and letting them know why you stopped them.
Commissioner, another thing that the report notes is that officers and supervisors, there's no way to identify the ones who are conducting and overseeing impermissible stops. Is that going to change?
Well, the whole thing will change, and so we'll have measures in place if during our auditing process there are people who seem to be struggling with filling the form out properly, they'll be trained and they'll be counseled and so forth and so on. But that goes along with any other thing that we may do according to our policies. So that is nothing really significant, but it's something we're going to review.
What happens now? What happens now?
Well, what happens now is we go about the process of seeing what the measures we put in place, what effect they have. And so it'll be difficult to determine that in this next quarter because we're already in it. But as we go forward, we'll see where the numbers take us. And look, we know we got to come back here. We know the judge wants to hear from us. We know he has concerns along with the plaintiff's counsel. We cannot argue with their issues. And so we'll see. It's in the numbers.